Good morning to all. Welcome to this 38th lecture session of the course, Computational Fluid Dynamics. So we are dealing about turbulence and its modeling. So what is turbulence? That I have given you some idea in the previous lecture. Here also we will try to see some more examples of turbulent flows, and then I will be specifically talking about the computational modeling of turbulent flows. Okay. So turbulent flows can be characterized or can be categorized into two different variety of problems. The first variety of problem is free turbulent flow. So where there is no solid surface or any obstruction present. So flow is free to propagate. And another can be, say, wall bounded flow. For example, if you are having flow over a flat plate, so one side is actually bounded by some solid surface, and if you are having flow through a pipe, then entire periphery of the fluid is actually bounded by some solid obstruction. Okay, so in case of free turbulent flows, I have given you over here examples of three different situations. So first case is a jet. So you can see this hatched portion is nothing but some solid nozzle, and out of through this nozzle we are finding some fluid is coming out. Second example is of a mixing layer, where we are having actually two layers which are moving. So you can see the bottom layer is having very low velocity and the top layer is having very high velocity. So while these are moving, actually there will be some transfer of momentum from the fast moving layer to the slow moving layer. Okay, so this type of problem is referred to as mixing layer. And third situation is actually of wake formation. So when we are having some solid obstruction in the path of the flow, we find that somewhere near the back portion there is boundary layer separation, and there is some chaotic formation, and during this also velocity of the mainstream flow actually decreases. Okay, and outside this chaotic separation there is actually velocity equal to that of the free stream velocity. So you can see over here we are having some maximum velocity, and then just behind this wake we are having very low velocity, and as we are moving, that velocity is actually regaining itself. Okay, and in all these three situations, the velocity vectors which are shown over here, these are nothing but corresponding to the mean flow or average flow velocity. Whereas if you see in total the velocity structure, there will be lot of turbulent fluctuations in all these cases because of the turbulence in the flow. Okay, so you can see that we are having in almost all three problems, you can see that whenever the fluid is coming just out of the solid objects, at that time the horizon of the fluid medium is low, and as it is further propagating, its actually propagation is also happening in the radial direction. Okay, so one very important phenomenon happens over here when we will be having the turbulent eddies near these fluid edges. We will be finding that whatever the surrounding fluid we are having, obviously this will be happening in the presence of some surrounding fluid. Say a jet of water is flowing in the presence of air, so our surrounding fluid will be initially nothing but stagnant. Okay, now at this surface there will be some formation of some turbulent eddies. So these turbulent eddies, what these will do, these will try to pull in, so these will try to pull in some portion of the surrounding fluid. Okay, and that surrounding fluids which was initially at rest, when this will join this fluid medium, it will try to attain some momentum. Okay, and obviously as the main fluid has pulled some stagnant surrounding fluid, so that's why its momentum will be decreasing. So it means there will be some momentum exchange in between the fluid and the surrounding fluid. Okay, so the process of pulling in the surrounding fluid because of this turbulent eddies is something which is known as entrainment. Okay, and when this entrainment takes place, so in all of these phenomenon entrainment is taking place. Here also you can consider that here you will be having some turbulent eddies formation, and these will try to pull in this fluid which is moving with almost free stream velocity. Okay, So whenever we are having this exchange of momentum because of the process of entrainment, there will be the propagation of these turbulent structures in the radial direction. Okay, so this, whatever this divergence or propagation of the flow structure is happening in the radial direction, that is something which is actually because of the process of entrainment. Okay, now if we consider the different velocities, for example, if for mixing layer I consider that bottom layer is having some velocity u mean and top layer is having some velocity u maximum. Okay, so then with the help of some scaling law, it can be found that u, where u is velocity at any random location y when we move away from the center line in radial direction. So velocity minus minimum velocity divided by maximum minus minimum is nothing but function of y by b, where y is some distance along the radial direction from the center line, and b is nothing but the location of this edge till the edge we are actually able to locate this chaoticness of the turbulent flow. Okay, so this is equal to function of y by b for mixing layers. This formulation holds. Whereas if I talk about jets, for the jets we are having only two velocities. So velocity profile is something like this. So at the center line we will be having some maximum velocity, and away from the center line we will be having some other values of velocity. So u by u max, if we try to scale, that becomes some another function g of y by b. And for the case of wake, you can find that within the wake we will be having some minimum velocity, and outside that we will be having the maximum velocity. Okay, and means at the center line we will be having minimum, and outside we will be having maximum, and in between we will be having some distribution of u. So u will be some function of y. So u max minus u divided by u max minus u mean is some another function h of y by b. Okay, so this is how like we can scale down the mean flow velocities. Okay, now it will be happening, say if I try to find out this particular relationship, say for jets at this location x1 along the length, and now if I find this at some another location x2, at some another location x3, I'll be finding that initially this functional relationship, whatever f of y by b I have written, at the locations x1 and x2 it will be different. But if you try to compare x2 and x3, x2 and x3 are actually like very much looking like same. So similar. So what will be happening? The functional relationship, whatever is holding for x2, almost same will be holding for x3 location. So what I mean to say over here, that when we are very close to the solid surface, in all the three situations, when we are very close to the solid surface, this functional relationship will be actually changing. And when we have moved sufficient distance away from the solid obstruction, at that time, if we try to see this functional relationship, this functional relationship will be actually holding same at different axial locations when we move sufficiently far away from the solid obstruction. Okay, and the flows for which sufficiently far away from solid obstruction, this functional relationship holds good, this function does not change, such type of flows are called as nothing but self-preserving flows. Okay, so this is one very, very important point. When this functional relationship does not change along the axial location, when we are far away from the solid obstruction, if this functional relationship is actually remaining constant, then we call such type of flows as nothing but self-preserving flows. Okay, and for self-preserving flows, what we can do, we can call the way we have actually characterized our mean flow velocity, almost in a similar fashion we can characterize nothing but our turbulent flow fluctuation. So I have plotted u dash square bar means variance of the horizontal fluctuation in x direction divided by u reference velocity square as nothing but f1 y by b. Similarly, I have written some functional form for v dash and w dash, and another functional form for u dash and v dash. So over here we are considering one important point, let me explain to you. So over here, we are considering a two-dimensional flow situation. Okay, 2D flow. 2D flow means we are considering only a plane, but still you will be surprised to know that we are talking about fluctuating component W naught. Whereas W naught is nothing but represents the velocity fluctuation in Z direction. So even though we are considering a two-dimensional situation, means we are having some planar symmetry in our mean flow, but as the nature of the turbulence is nothing but anisotropic, so due to anisotropic nature of the turbulence, even if we are dealing with one-dimensional or two-dimensional problem, the mean flow variables will be satisfying that condition of 1D and 2D, whereas the fluctuating components will be actually always existing in all three directions, because turbulence is actually very random and it is of anisotropic in nature. Okay, so due to the anisotropic nature of the turbulence, we will be having fluctuations in all directions, even though we are dealing with 1D or 2D flow situations. Okay, so that's why you can see over here for 2D flow situation also, like we are having W dot as component fluctuation which is participating. Okay, and then for U dash V dash also we have defined some another function f of 4. Now we will not go into the much theoretical details that how to obtain these functional relationship, but over here in the subsequent slides I will try to show you some of the experimental variations of these mean as well as the fluctuating functions as function of this y by b. Okay, so you can see over here, so this is nothing but for mixing layers. For mixing layers, on the left hand side we are having scale of u bar by u maximum, where u bar is nothing but represents the mean flow velocity, and here we have considered y minus y half. So this y half is nothing but our equal to b, and x minus x naught. So x naught refers to the position of the solid surface. Okay, so with this non-dimensionalization, if we see in case of mixing layers, we'll be finding that the top layer is having very high velocity. So you can see over here the magnitude of top layer is having very high velocity, and as we are moving from top layer to bottom layer close to the center line, near the center line we are having significant gradient of the velocity. So you can see here we are having significant gradient, and then when we are reaching once again close to the bottom layer, the gradient of velocity is actually diminishing. Okay, so this is about mean flow. Now for fluctuating components, u dash square I divided by u max 1 by 2 we have written, and it is written I equal to 1 and I equal to 2. So I equal to 1 is nothing but refers to u dash, and I equal to 2 is nothing but referring over here as v dash. So when we are plotting the root mean square velocity fluctuation in x and y direction with u max, we are finding some trend. So this is for u dash and this trend is for v dash. Okay, so now here are some very important observations. So you can see the peak value of these fluctuating components. So these are nothing but the peak values of the fluctuating components. So the peak values of fluctuating components are corresponding to the maximum gradient of the mean flow velocity. Okay, and another important thing is also there, wherever we are having the gradient of mean flow, in that zone only we are finding that we are having some significant magnitudes of the fluctuating components, and obviously the magnitudes of these fluctuating components is also differing a lot in x and y direction. Whereas when we move in the region where we are not having the presence of any shear layer, means shear layer means we are not having the velocity gradient in the mean flow, at that point of time in both the sides our fluctuating components magnitude is also decreasing. At the same point of time this these two lines are also joining each other. Okay, so one important conclusion we can make over here, that the formation and propagation of turbulent flow is something which is actually associated with the gradient or I can call gradient of the mean flow, average flow, or I can call that the in the presence of shear flow only we will be having occurrence of the turbulence. And when we move away from the shear flow, we will be finding that the turbulent fluctuations magnitude will be decreasing, and at the same point of time the magnitude of fluctuations in different directions will collapse to a single value. So it means that the portion where we are having significant gradient of the mean flow, there we are having the nature of turbulence as nothing but anisotropic, okay, because turbulent fluctuations are different in different directions, and moreover their magnitude is also high. So if their magnitude is high, it means these are the reasons where we are having the presence of large eddies, okay. And as we move away from these eddies, away from these gradients, we will be having actually diminish in the fluctuating components magnitude, and all fluctuating components will try to attain almost same value. So it means in this portion the nature of turbulence becomes nothing but isotropic at the same point of time as fluctuating components are having very low magnitude. So it means here viscous effects are dominant, and we can say that here we will be having presence of nothing but small eddies. Okay, so is this point clear to all? So whatever I have explained, is it clear, or shall I repeat?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Let me then go to the next case. So next case is of jet. So for the jet, we have plotted y by y half. So y half is nothing but once again b, and we have plotted only along a single direction. So in case of jet, you have seen that velocity profile of the average flow is nothing but symmetric. So if the velocity profile of average flow is symmetric, we will be finding maximum magnitude of velocity at the center line, and as we will be moving away from the center line, we will be having very low, we will be having some gradient of the mean flow velocity. Okay, and in the right hand side I have plotted different scales for one is for ui dash square divided by u max. So where I equal to 1, 2, 3 will be corresponding to UVW, and then I have one for U1 dash and U2 dash multiplication. Okay. One important point I would like to highlight over here. So at this point, the gradient of the velocity will be 0. So as gradient of velocity will be 0, so all the values of fluctuating turbulent components will be actually diminishing. So you can see that all the values are nothing but going to 0 at this center line. Okay, and as we move away from the center line, we are having some gradient in the mean flow. So because of that, the magnitude of turbulent components is increasing, and where we are having highest gradient of the mean flow, there we are having the peak value. So this is for u1 dash u2 dash by u max square, and this is for different i's, I equal to 1, 2 and 3. Okay, so over here also the findings are similar to that what I have explained in case of mixing layer. The only difference is that the only difference is that that occurrence of peak values is at some different locations, and when we are entering in some region where gradient of the mean flow diminishes, there we are finding that almost all the fluctuating components, their values are diminishing, and they are trying to reach to some same value, same magnitude. Okay, so that depicts that beyond this region we will be having turbulence is nothing but of isotropic nature. Okay, similarly I have plotted these velocity variations for the case of a wake. Okay, so this is a wake profile over here. So this is my u max minus u divided by u naught, and you can see over here that at the center point we are having 0 gradient, and when we are moving away from the center we are having gradients of velocity, and you can see corresponding to the gradients you are having occurrence of the peak values in fluctuating components, and when gradient becomes 0, their value is actually decreasing. Okay, and in case of shear flow, you can see one important observation. So when we are having multiplication of u dash into v dash, so multiplication of u dash into v dash is nothing but our representative of the turbulent shear stress. Okay, so as we are having velocity profile about the center line in case of wake something like this. So it means at the center line, above the center line, we are having some different curvature and means different sign for the gradient, and below we are having some different sign for the gradient. So that's why if when we will be discussing about the shear stress will be having actually different signs above and below the center line. Okay, so this you can see over here. So this curve is nothing but for turbulent shear stress, because multiplication of u dash into v dash with rho becomes our turbulent shear stress. Okay, so you are finding that one side of the center line it is having positive magnitude, and other side of the center line it is having negative magnitude. Okay, so this point is clear.
Sir, please repeat.
Okay, so what I am telling that this is our nothing but velocity profile in case of wake flow. Okay, now you can see if you calculate del u by del y, del u by del y is having some say positive value over here in the upper portion, and del u by del y is having negative value in the bottom portion. Okay, so gradient is having different signs. So because of that, when we are plotting the turbulent shear stress is nothing but rho times u dash v dash and bar over the entire. Okay, so when we are plotting this u dash into v dash by u naught square, it is nothing but a representative of the turbulent shear stress, and shear stress is something which depends upon the gradient of the velocity. So as gradient of the velocity is changing the sign on two different sides of the center line, so that's why shear stress will also be having the different signs. Okay.
Okay, sir.
Okay, now let us talk about the wall bounded flows. So earlier I have discussed the free turbulent flows. Now I will be talking about wall bounded flows. Okay, so in case of wall bounded flow, the important flows are nothing but a flat plate, boundary layer, and the pipe flow. Okay, so when we talk about the boundary layer over the pipe, over the flat plate, we will be finding that we will be having some portion close to the wall. We will be having some portion close to the wall where viscous effects will be very, very dominant. Okay, and beyond that, we will be finding beyond this boundary layer region or close to this delta thickness of the boundary layer, we will be having some region over here where viscosity of the fluid is not very much dominant. However, we are having some gradient of velocity del u by del y. Okay, so based on these two different regions, we will try to obtain certain laws. So the very first region I am considering over here is very close to wall. So when I am talking about very close to wall, during that time viscosity of the fluid will be very, very dominant. Okay, so here I can say that my velocity will be function of y, where y is nothing but distance in vertical direction away from the surface of the plate, and rho is density of the fluid, mu is viscosity of the fluid, and along with that we will be having some wall shear stress over here, and that wall shear stress will be actually playing an important role. Okay, now if I apply over here the dimensional analysis, so if I apply say Buckingham pi theorem, finally I'll be finding some non-dimensional relationship over here, u by u tau as function of rho u tau y divided by mu, where u tau is nothing but defined as tau w wall shear stress divided by density. Okay, so the ratio of wall shear stress divided by density is something which is called as u tau. Okay, now the ratio of u divided by u tau, so u is the velocity which we want to calculate at any location, so the ratio of u by u tau is something which is called as u plus, and this is becoming function of rho u tau y by mu. This is taking the formulation identical to that of Reynolds number. But over here, this u tau is something which we have taken some specific velocity. So this particular entire value rho u tau y by mu is something which is known as y plus. Okay, and the law which holds this relationship u plus is some function of y plus. That particular law is something which is known as law of wall. Okay, because this is something which is obtained when we are operating in very much close to the vicinity of the wall. And when we are away from the wall means when we are in the region close to the boundary layer thickness, close to this boundary layer demarcation. Okay, so beyond that we are having potential flow, and within this we are having actually presence of boundary layer. Okay, so when we are in this region over here, viscosity of fluid is not that much important. Rather, whatever the gradients will be existing, these gradients will be mainly because of the shear stress which has actually come or propagated from the wall. So between the different layers, we are having some shear stress. So that shear stress is actually causing over here different layers of the fluid to slow down and create some gradient of velocity in the mean flow. So that's why while I will be defining this functional relationship over here, so first thing is along with y, because we are talking about the variation of velocity in vertical direction, so y I have to consider, but along with y I have to include one more parameter delta, because now I am talking about the region close to this delta. Okay, close to the boundary layer demarcation. So that's why I'm considering the region close to delta. Okay, and as in this region viscosity is not important, so we have dropped the viscosity term and we have considered only density and wall shear stress. Okay, so if you once again do the dimensional analysis, apply the Buckingham pi theorem over here, you will be finding that u by u tau is nothing but some function g of y by delta. Okay, now many of the times we are interested in that how much our velocity within the boundary layer has slowed with reference to the free stream velocity u max. Okay, so many of the times our interest is to find out the retardation in the flow velocity in the boundary layer region, okay, with reference to the maximum velocity. So that's why what we do, we write over here u max minus u. So in place of u, I can call the change in velocity as nothing but u max minus u divided by u tau as some function g of y by delta. Okay, so this is something which is called as nothing but velocity defect law. So this law over here, which represents the relative decrease in the velocity within the boundary layer when it is compared with free stream flow, that particular law is something which is called as nothing but velocity defect law. Now, what these specific functional forms of law of wall and velocity defect law will be taking, that I'll be discussing in now subsequent slides. Okay, now let us talk about the region which is very, very close to the wall. So this is my wall, and in the boundary layer, now I am talking about some region which is very close to wall. Okay, and for this very close to wall region, let us consider that our y plus value is nothing but less than 5. So the region which is very, very close to the wall is something for which y plus value is actually less than 5. So it means we are talking about immediate vicinity of the wall. So when we are talking about immediate vicinity of the wall, we know that our velocity profile is something like this. Okay, so we will be finding that if I amplify this zone, in this amplified zone, I will be finding that, so this is my wall and this is that demarcation which is corresponding to y plus say equal to 5. So I will be finding that in this near wall region, whatever this gradient we are having, that gradient will be having almost linear variation. So if it is having linear variation of del u by del y, that will be giving us del u by del y will be giving us nothing but some constant value. So if that is giving us some constant value, as shear stress, wall shear stress is proportional to del u by del y, so I can simply say that in this entire region, I can take the assumption of constant wall shear stress tau w. Okay, is this point clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so very, very close to the wall, we can consider that our shear stress is nothing but constant. Okay, so this is the equation tau y equal to mu del u by del y, and this I am equating nearly equal to constant wall shear stress tau w. Okay, now if I integrate this equation, so obviously I will be having boundary conditions, u equal to 0 at y equal to 0, and I'll be having another boundary condition at some y, I have say u as nothing but ui. So if I integrate this particular del u by del y using these boundary conditions, I'll be finding that u of y is nothing but tau w into y by mu. Okay, so it means I have obtained some value for u. Now if I do u by u tau, so u by u tau is nothing but our u plus. So u we have obtained over here as tau w into y by mu, and u tau is something which is square root of density divided by 1 by mu tau is nothing but square root of density divided by square root of tau w. Now if I over here multiply with square root of rho and divide with square root of rho, what I'll be getting? This tau w will make over here under this one square root. Okay, and this rho into rho will become simply rho, and this root tau w by rho will become nothing but u tau. So I can write simply rho into y into u tau upon mu. So what is this rho y u tau upon mu? This is nothing but our y plus. Okay, so once we are having this formulation of velocity u, I can call that my u plus is nothing but equal to y plus. So for the region very, very close to wall where y plus is less than 5, I can take the assumption of linear velocity profile and I can consider wall shear stress to be constant, and in this region I can say that u plus will be nothing but equal to y plus. So I have obtained this functional relationship which is linear. So this particular law is known as nothing but law of linear scale, linear sublayer, or I can also call it as law of viscous sublayer. Okay, so this is called as law of linear layer or law of viscous sublayer. Then beyond this region we are having one more layer. Beyond this region we are having one more layer where we will be having the relative importance or relative presence of both viscous effects as well as the turbulent forces. Okay, so when we are having the relative presence of turbulent stresses as well as the viscous effects in this region, if we try to see, we will be finding that u plus is nothing but 1 by k ln of y plus plus b, where k is something which is called as von Karman constant, and its value is nearly equal to 0.4. B is having value of 5.5, and I can also write it in the form of 1 by k ln of e into y plus, and when I am writing this in this formulation, this e holds a relation of nothing but 9.8. Okay, so this particular second equation is applicable for which region? This is applicable for some region which is away from the wall, away from the immediate vicinity of wall. It is not far away from the wall, it is actually away from immediate vicinity of wall. So for this one, value of y plus is, I think, in the range of 20 or 30 to 500. So when we are having the value of y plus around 30 to 500, it means we are not far away from the wall, but we are slightly away from the immediate vicinity. So in the immediate vicinity, there will be dominance of viscous forces, but slightly away from the immediate vicinity, we will be having relative interaction of turbulent stresses and the viscous forces. Okay, so for that, the relationship in between u plus and y plus is something logarithmic, of logarithmic nature, and this particular relation is called as nothing but log law. Okay, so this is called as log law. Then when we are very far away from this region, so very far away from this region will be close to the boundary layer demarcation. So when I am close to the boundary layer demarcation, over there, once again, as I have told you earlier, that viscous effects will be negligible, and that region will be mainly governed by the inertia forces. Okay, so for that particular region, we obtain some velocity formulation as something like this: u max minus u divided by u tau equal to minus 1 by k ln of y by delta plus a. So over here, this relation is logarithmic because while this relation is derived, it is taken care of that in the overlapping region, these two laws holds good. So that's why this has taken the form similar to that of this log law. Okay, and this law is particularly applicable. So this is something which is driven based on the or having formulation similar to that of velocity defect law. So this particular law is applicable in inertial dominant region. This point is clear? So
Yes, sir.
one important observation I want to tell you over here. So over the boundary layer, over a flat plate, let me represent it some magnified way. So magnified way means I will be writing huge thickness. So you can see first we are having some region over here very close to the wall, and in this region we will be having nothing but dominance of, here we will be having dominance of viscous forces. Okay, then we are having some another region, and in this another region we are having actually relative importance of, here we are having relative importance of turbulent stresses, relative importance of turbulent stresses and viscosity. And then we are having some more region over here where we are having nothing but, dominance of turbulent stresses. Okay, so if you can see over the flat plate, velocity profile is something like this. So I have talked about these three reasons which are in the strong gradient of the flow. Then we will be finding some region. So our actual demarcation is say at this point. So then we will be finding some region where though gradients are present, but their magnitude is very, very small. So in this region, actually, we will be having the dominance of inertial forces. So when we are having the dominance of inertial forces, there our this final equation, whatever I have applied, that will be actually applicable. Okay, so one important observation I am telling you, that the first point is where dominance of viscosity is there and we are having some linear scaling. Then we are having the second region where turbulent as well as the viscous effects are dominant, and here some logarithmic profile is there, and this logarithmic law holds good. Then we are having some buffer region, buffer layer, where there is dominance of turbulent stresses, and beyond that we are having the dominance of inertial forces. Okay, now if I plot log of y plus and u plus over here, so this particular equation, this because I am plotting log of y dash, so that's why linear relationship is actually looking like a curve over here, and this is actually our logarithmic equation over here with the another straight line which is shown over here, and over this linear and logarithmic law we have plotted some black points. So these black points are nothing but some experimental observations. Okay, so it is quite evident that very close to the wall linear scaling holds, and away from that there is the formation of this logarithmic scale. And when we will be moving even far away, then there will be the nature logarithmic only, but exact coefficients will be something different. Okay, and this portion over here is nothing but represents the overlap in between the linear law and the log law. So over here, in case of, you can see in case of experiments, this transition is smooth, whereas from the theory this transition is actually very, very sharp. So basically this is due to the fact that when we derive the theories we take certain assumptions, and in the transition region these assumptions does not hold good. Okay, so that's why we are getting this smooth transition in case of experimental observations. Okay, so this point is clear?
Yes, sir.
So over here, one important conclusion we have seen, that when we will be dealing with the turbulent computational modeling of turbulent flows, if we are having the presence of turbulence, then we have to actually provide some different treatment for the wall boundary conditions. Okay, and that treatment of wall boundary condition is something which has to be dependent on these different laws which I have defined over here. Okay, so here comes the distribution of mean velocity and second moments of velocity for flow over a flat plate. So you can see this is my y by delta. So at the this is mean velocity u bar by u infinity. So mean velocity is 0 at the wall, and when we are moving away from the wall its value is increasing, and it is actually reaching to the free stream velocity at far away from the wall. Okay, and as initially its gradient is 0 very close to the wall, so you will be finding that all these values, fluctuating components, are becoming 0 over here. And when we are having over here some steep gradient, corresponding to the steep gradient these values are actually attaining some maximum values. And you can see this u dash, v dash and w dash, all these three are having significant difference in their magnitude, which shows that turbulence is of nothing but anisotropic nature. And as I told you earlier also, when we are moving in the region where gradients in the velocity are not there, are not much significant, in that portion all these velocity values are attaining almost constant profile. So it means the nature of turbulence in this region is nothing but isotropic. So it means one important conclusion we can make, that for the turbulence to sustain we should have always some shear flow. So if there is no shear in the flow, then turbulence cannot sustain over there. Okay. Okay, now let us try to see that how turbulence will try to affect the properties, different properties into our flow, and how what modifications we have to do in the governing equations in order to account for the effect of turbulence. Okay, so what I have done, I have plotted a control volume, a two-dimensional control volume in two-dimensional turbulent shear flow. Okay, so this is a mean velocity distribution of this shear flow, and in this control volume I have shown you over here the formation of different turbulent eddies. So you can see over here some of the eddies are actually completely inside the control volume, and some of the eddies are near the boundaries of the control volume. So over here you can see this eddy is actually creating some rotation of the fluid in clockwise direction. So you can see in this side there will be some velocity in upward direction, and over here there will be some velocity in downward direction. And if you follow the another eddy over here, so here it is having on the right side velocity in upward direction, and in the left side velocity in downward direction. Okay, so you can see over here that we know that we are having some convection and diffusion effects because of the mean flow, but apart from the mean flow we are having some rotation rotating turbulent eddies which are participating into the flow, and these rotating turbulent eddies are also trying to create some exchange of properties across the boundaries of the control volume. For example, this inward velocity is trying to move some fluid from outside the control volume to inside, and this is actually trying to take out the fluid from the control volume from inside to outside. Similarly, over here also some interaction is there. Okay, some interaction is here also. So here also you can see this is trying to move out some of the fluid from inside of the control volume to outside. So it means along with the convection and diffusion effects of the average flow or mean flow, we are having some additional flow structures which are creating the exchange of fluid mass between the control volumes. So these exchange of fluid mass between the control volumes will be actually creating some additional effects on the exchange of properties. So if I consider over here the adiabatic flow situation, then it is pulling some fluid from outside the control volume. If outside the control volume is having low velocity and inside it is having fast velocity, so obviously it will be outside fluid will be accelerated over here, and it will try to actually deaccelerate the overall momentum of this control volume. And if the situation is other way, then the reverse will be happening. Okay, so it means that because of these turbulent eddies, there is some exchange of the momentum. Now, if say I have some gradient of temperature over here in the flow field, so when it will try to move some fluid from some different location to some another location, or from one location to another location, so because of the gradient also, there will be the part of the fluid which was there earlier in some another portion holding some different value of the temperature, that will be immediately entering into some different field of temperature. Okay, so this kind of rapid mixing which is caused because of the turbulent eddies, this enhances actually exchange of the properties. For example, exchange of momentum, exchange of temperature, and if we are having the concentration gradient, then exchange of mass also. Okay, so due to this particular reason, the turbulence is so much important in our practical flow situations, because it enhances mixing and exchange of properties between the different participating properties. Okay, but this turbulence causes, so it means physically it is clear to us at the moment that turbulence is enhancing the exchange of the property, but how that enhancement in exchange of the property can be accounted into our governing equations, that we have to see now. Okay, so in order to derive the turbulent flow equations, what we have to do, we have to first know about some algebra of time average fluctuating properties. So I will not go into the detailed discussion of this algebra. However, this algebra is very, very simple. So if you, whatever the relations I have given in the previous lecture, if you substitute these relations over here, you will try to obtain all these forms which I have briefly summarized over here. So the first point is, if we are having any fluctuating component phi dash and psi dash, their average will be equal to 0. This is something which I have shown you in the last lecture also. And phi bar is equal to, and under this condition, phi bar will become equal to phi. Okay, so if I have to calculate the gradient of del phi bar, del phi by del s bar, that will be becoming nothing but del by del s of mean value of phi. Similar hold for the integration also. Okay, and if I have to do the summation of phi plus psi bar, so this small phi and small psi is nothing but it represents complete property, capital phi plus phi dash, and similarly small psi is nothing but capital psi plus psi dash. So if I have to add this small phi and small psi and take their averaging over some time, so that will be nothing but sum of their mean values. If we have to do the multiplication, that will be equal to multiplication of mean values plus second moment of the fluctuating components. Okay, similarly if I multiply this one with mean value of another, that will be simply nothing but mean product of their multiplication of the mean values. Okay, and fluctuating component when multiplied with mean value and its average is taken, so because average of the fluctuating component is nothing but 0, so it will be becoming equal to 0. Now if I apply some divergence operation, so if I say that my small a is nothing but equal to capital A plus A dash. Okay, so if I take some vector field and if I apply the divergence of A bar, that will be nothing but equal to divergence of the mean value. Similarly, if I do divergence of phi into A bar, that will be becoming divergence of phi into A bar and its divergence, and it can also be written as divergence of phi into A mean values and divergence of phi dash A dash bar. Okay, and similarly divergence of gradient of phi can be written as divergence and gradient of the mean value of phi. Okay, all these algebra, whatever these basic formulations I have shown over here, these you can simply derive if you substitute the time averaging equations which I have shown in the earlier lecture. Okay, now using these formulations, we can actually derive our nothing but time averaged equations for the incompressible flow situations. Okay, so I think we are now exceeding our time limit, so I'll stop at this point and we'll have further discussion in our next lecture. So if you are having any questions, that you may discuss now.